What's going on, brothers and sisters? Chris here from Namaste Gaming, and this is the first in the new format of the patch discussion videos. We're going to start off with a few thoughts on the Twilight Assault patch, and then we'll talk about what we've got previewed for next week. So, Twilight Assault. We've got us a new dungeon path. It's not quite the total revamp that we've been waiting for, but word on the street says that's still yet to come, and this is really just an extra put in for the purpose of the living story. I still haven't finished this one. I've only dipped in here twice. The first time we rage quit on the ooze room, and the second time we made it to Spark and Slick, wiped a few times, and I ran out of time to keep going. Each attempt bought us a bit of progress though, and for the first time in a dungeon in this game, I felt like I did pugging heroics in Wrath of the Lich King era WoW. I was pissed that we kept wiping, but feeling like if we hit the drawing board and came back, we'd do better. Not gonna lie, I don't think I'll ever get into the PvE side of things too far in this game. For me, the removal of the Trinity, and for those of you who might be new to MMOs, I mean the holy trinity of roles, tank, healer, and DPS. The removal of those roles in this game taught me why they're the standard. Without the Trinity, it's really difficult to balance a fun but challenging boss fight. So to circle around back to the point, I think for the most part at least, they got it right with Spark and Slick. Unfortunately, I haven't really experienced the rest of the dungeons, so I can't say a whole lot about it, but after watching some videos, it seems to me like this is probably the most balanced and challenging PvE content that's been put in the game so far. And while it's too early to make any sort of blanket statements, if this dungeon is any indication, PvE in Guild Wars 2 has the potential to get a lot more interesting. Not much else to talk about regarding the last patch, so let's talk about the next one. Blood and Madness is the next release coming on October 15th. Halloween is on its way, and our old friendo the Mad King is back and up to his old tricks. And apparently his kid is getting in on the action too. We've got a bunch of stuff returning from last Halloween in the Mad Realm doors, the Mad King's Labyrinth, and the Clock Tower jumping puzzle, and of course the Lunatic Inquisition PvP minigame. Personally, I had a lot of fun with the Labyrinth last year, so I'll be looking forward to hitting that up again, and because I'm a masochist, I'll probably take another run at the Clock Tower, even though I think my record last time was about 6 jumps before failing stupendously. Either way, I'm gonna be getting that candy corn. 20 slot bags for what is sure to be an oversaturated currency sounds like a pretty good deal to me, although I'd be willing to put money on them costing an exorbitant number of pieces, being unique, or maybe even both. Not sure whether they're bringing the old Halloween weapons back or putting in entirely new ones, but if the crossing comes back, best believe I'm grabbing one for my Necro if I can get the scratch together for it. So wait, a patch of mostly recycled content. What's up with that? Well, as it turns out, most of the work went into things that affect the game for more than a couple of weeks, which I can't say I'm horribly upset about. Targeting is being improved to more intelligently prioritize champions and players, instead of randomly flitting between targets like a mentally unstable hummingbird after a bump of coke, which I'm super stoked about. The targeting system as it stands is pretty much my biggest gripe with the combat in Guild Wars 2, so if they can make it feel more intuitive and less random, I will be oh so very happy, and judging by the response I've gotten every time I've discussed it with people, I'm definitely not alone in that regard. We're also getting some more options for ground targeting, and optional floaters for condition damage. It's really nice to see ArenaNet continuing to spend time on quality of life fixes. There's something that a lot of companies would choose to overlook since they don't really generate any revenue, so it's always nice to know that we're spending our time and money on a game whose developers care about the gameplay experience more than min-maxing their paper stacks. On a related note, the tooltips on traits and skills are getting expanded to actually give detailed explanations of what they do. I'm sure for the average player this isn't really a huge deal, more just a nice extra, but for people like me who like to pore over builds and spend probably more time theory crafting than actually playing the game, this is exciting. This means that anytime I'm uncertain about whether one trait is better for a build than another, instead of having to jump in game and test it with all the muck that entails, I can just check the tooltips, maybe bust out a calculator if I really want to go deep. I love this change. Anything that gives me more opportunity to put builds together and get them out to you guys is great in my books. Speaking of builds, the biggest change with this patch is another big balancing pass. Support builds and the relevant skills associated with them will be receiving a tune-up, and while we don't know exactly what's getting changed or by how much, Jonathan Sharp did drop a few examples for each class, which I'll leave a link to in the description below. From what they've said in that thread, they seem pretty intent on support being a viable role, but the question is, how much are we really going to see it tweaked, and is it going to affect anything other than World v World? There are very few situations outside of World v World where support really shines. Both PvE and SPVP have their own distinct meta, and I'm not sure if there's much room in either for support builds. For PvE, there just aren't a ton of situations where you benefit from doing anything other than killing things as fast as possible. And for PvP, you either need to be able to dish out mass damage or survive mass damage. Basically, in both game modes, you need to be able to take care of yourself one way or another. And since support builds typically require multiple allies near them to make their trade-offs worthwhile, they're a tough sell. I'm curious to see just how far they're going to go with this. Even a tiny tweak will make a noticeable difference in a group-heavy setting like World v World, so the real question, as far as I'm concerned, is whether or not they can make support builds a good choice in PvE and PvP without breaking World v World along the way. Too little, and they're still not worth breaking the mold for. Too much, and every Zerg will be running around with perma-boons, making Zerg breaking that much more of a pain than it already is. Do you guys think they can pull it off? It looks pretty difficult from where I'm sitting, but I really do like the idea of having viable support builds, and the last balance pass worked out pretty decently overall, so I'm hopeful that there will be more good than bad this patch. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. That's all I've got for you today. Our guild over on Isle of Janthir is recruiting, so if you're interested in being a part of it, drop a message to myself or Rysalea. Our contact info will be in the description below. Our only requirements are that you rep us more often than not, and please just don't be a dick. If you're on another server and you want to head over to IOJ to play with us, world transfers are currently on sale, and it's looking like we're going to be entering the first World v World season near the top of League 2. So now's the time to make your way over if you want to be a part of winning this whole thing. That's it, folks. If you enjoyed it, you can let me know by clicking the like button, and if you're new around here, make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss anything. Much love to all of you. Stay black.